Divine Mercy Radio Catholic 540 AM is proud to present Come to Me, Encounters with the Eucharist, a local program that shares the stories of people who have been drawn to or deepened their faith in the Catholic Church by encountering Jesus in the Eucharist. Welcome your host of Come to Me, Brittany Makely.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Come to Me. The Gospels are filled with Christ's calls for us to come to a new life in Him. He meets us where we are, intriguing us by the people we meet, the beauty we witness, the truth we read, all to prompt a desire for something greater. As Catholics, we have the opportunity to encounter Jesus in a uniquely intimate way in the Holy Eucharist. This life-changing reality is what Archbishop Fulton Sheen recognized when he pointed out the greatest love story of all time is contained in a tiny white host. And so, on this episode of Come to Me, we will hear one of these stories of life-altering encounters. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by my friend, Lydia Tatum. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's so fun to be in the studio with you.
Yes, it is. We have a problem of talking, and oftentimes our life is like a podcast. So
Sure
I
is.
think we're in for a treat today, you and I.
And the audience.
Yeah, them too.
They're going to want to come on this journey with us. They're going to have a good time. So it's especially fun timing-wise because I actually interviewed your husband for this program almost exactly a year ago. Mm-hmm. And so we've heard sort of his half of your family's very interesting journey and how Jesus really intimately called to you. And so I'm very grateful that you were willing to come in today and share your story with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll start like we always start. Could you rewind? First of all, I want you to tell our audience where about-ish in the diocese are you located, go to Mass, and how long have you been Catholic?
Yeah, we are in Diocese of Raleigh, in Raleigh proper, and have attended Mass pretty much in every parish in Raleigh while we were Protestant pastors. But as Catholics, we are parishioners at St. Luke's in North Raleigh.
Beautiful. Yeah. And you came into the church?
In 2024, very recently. So it was January 2nd, 2024. My husband on his podcast said it incorrectly. Dates aren't his thing. He said January 3rd. It is January 2nd, 2024.
We'll make sure we remind him.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's rewind back to childhood. So you already teased us that you end up as a Protestant pastor, which I'm inclined to think means you did not start as a cradle Catholic.
Correct.
So how did faith begin for you in your family?
I was raised by two very committed and devout Baptist parents. My parents actually met in Baptist youth group. My dad was a Methodist, and my mom was a Baptist. His mom played the organ, and he actually grew up singing with her. And my aunt has this beautiful memories of him singing Amazing Grace. And when I was born, my parents had been a part of a small church community that built like a neighborhood around their church. And they were very, I guess, charismatic. But that's not how I was raised. They went through their charismatic phase, and then they went back to where Mom grew up at First Baptist Church in Danville, Virginia, which is my husband. The first time he visited, he goes, "This is the most Methodist Baptist church I've ever been in," because it's very like high church Baptist, which doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but it has a very specific liturgy. We prayed the Lord's Prayer every Sunday, which most Baptists don't do that every Sunday. We sang the doxology, which is just the last stanza of one of our Catholic hymns, but they don't know that. And so we sang the doxology every time. And so it was very structured. We had multiple readings. It wasn't just one reading before a big, long sermon. So it was pretty, liturgical for a Baptist church. It was also quite historic. They just celebrated, I think, their 200th anniversary. Wow. It's this beautiful old Gothic church in downtown Danville. And so my dad was a deacon, which is a different kind of, office in the Baptist church. Most of the time, Baptist churches will have several lay deacons, depending on the number of people in the church, and they're primary purpose varies from church to church, but it's for the spiritual care of the congregation. So they have families that are assigned to them that they take care of. And so my dad, his self-appointed role was he was the door opener. So we lived like 30 minutes away from town. And so we would ride into town. Mom would read us her Bible study lesson all the way in. We'd get there before the pastor, and Dad would open the doors. And so my faith was very much like this really beautiful family-oriented thing that was also influenced by my uncles and my grandparents. And I was very well nurtured in the Christian faith. And my parents believed in good, solid Catholic education. And so at 3 years old, I started Sacred Heart Catholic School in preschool and went all the way through my 8th grade year there. So we were odd Baptists even then, but we weren't that odd in Danville. About 50% of the kids in my class were Protestant. We had Jewish kids in my class at Sacred Heart. And actually, they just celebrated their 70th anniversary as a school. And I was reading in Virginia Catholic the story of the school, and it was actually started to educate African-American children during segregation. Wow. And so it had this kind of missional aspect to it, missional charism that carried through, where this just became a trusted place in our community where our kids could be nurtured and they could receive a solid education and they could experience the love of Christ from a very young age. And so I'm so grateful that my parents made the sacrifices they did so that I could be educated in that way and nurtured in my faith from multiple different perspectives all the way through.
So being in a Catholic school for all those years, what was your perspective or understanding of what was the difference between, or what was the relationship between the different denominations of faith?
I had no idea. Okay. I had no idea. Because I will fast forward a little bit. My first paper in college as a Baptist undergrad in a Baptist institution was entitled Inviting the Lord to the Lord's Table, because I was flabbergasted that Baptists didn't believe in transubstantiation. That was the first time I'd ever heard of it, because we didn't talk about that in Sunday school. But 5 days a week, I had Catholic religious ed. And so I was like, well, this is really confusing, guys. Y'all are wrong. So, there was... Okay. My education stuck pretty early on.
Yeah. So when for you did you start to realize that there were actual differences that would matter for where you would make your home?
Yeah. Well, so when I was a young teenager, I was with my Baptist church. Baptist youth groups, especially in the 80s, 90s, 2000s and on, a big part of it is going on a summer mission trip. And so I was on my first summer mission trip. We were just outside of Chicago. I spent the whole week scraping lead paint off of a house, because this was the 90s and they allowed children to do that then. Scraping lead paint off a house and repainting it for just a sweet homeowner. She was probably in her 80s. She was kind of the matriarch of the neighborhood. We saw all of her kids and grandkids and people who probably weren't related, but they were, because she was their grandma too. Yep. That came in and out, and I just fell in love with serving people. And at the end of that week, I had this deep sense that God wanted me to serve his church. I had to do something about that. I had to give my life to this, and it really changed my trajectory a little bit, because I was very math and science brained, and that felt very humanities, and I was not going I knew my own mind at 13 years old, and so I had really only been looking at medical field. I am third generation medical, and so it would just make sense that that's what I was going to do, and this didn't really compute very well, but I had a peace in my heart about it. But then, I was a teenager, so you grow up and, you get a lot wiser. And so I bargained with God a lot about it. And so my big bargain was, if I worked at St. Jude's, that's still technically like for the church, right, Jesus? And if I am doing pediatric oncology, then certainly I'm serving your people. And so, I had this was my trajectory. This is what I was going to do. I had pretty much made up my mind. But as juniors in high school, about to become seniors in high school, do. Everyone and their mother asks you, so what are you going to do next year? Where are you going to go to college? And it's really annoying. Adults out there, hear this. If you have one of those young people in your lives, they're really annoyed with your questions. And it was actually a friend who asked me that question. And this was the beginnings of online talking. We called it chatting. And
Instant
it was
message.
on ICQ, not AIM, because it was even kind of before that. And so we're late at night on my dial-up, and he asked me that question. And it was almost like the room went totally still. And God said, remember your calling. And so I'm quickly typing back, and I'm like, I think I'm going to go study religion. I mean, it was just like out of nowhere. I think that's what I'm going to do. And so my Catholic school only went through 9th grade. So we didn't have a Catholic high school. So I was in a public high school at the time. So where do you go if God is talking to you in the middle of the night while you're on ICQ, but to your pastor? And so I went to our pastor at First Baptist, who was wonderful, funnily enough, was also in radio. And he was like, I got my degree in mass communications down at Campbell University. How about we take a ride down there? You can get your undergrad in religion. You can go straight through in your seminary degree, and you can be like in your field serving the church immediately. And so we all hopped in the car and drove to Buies Creek, first city, by the way, that I ever lived in.
We're classifying Buies Creek as a city.
Yeah. Have you seen it? They have a stoplight now. So we went down, and I felt a peace about being there, which my dad was the one saying, don't you want to go to Belmont Abbey or to McGill? Because,
You mean
it's
the
good,
Catholic Belmont Abbey?
It's good, solid Catholic education. And he's like, if you go to McGill, you can speak French the whole time. And I was like, no, I'm going to Campbell University. And so that's where I ended up. That's where I met my husband.
Okay.
And it was almost like I hopped on a train and I didn't know how to get off because I knew I was going to serve the church. I started ministry when I was 19 years old. I was a youth minister at 19 years old, and I never stopped. I never had any other job that was doing anything other than serving the church and serving her people. And so I got, went straight through, got my degrees, had babies all along the way, and you have to feed those people. And so Andrew and I met my first semester freshman year, New Testament Greek class. I may or may not have done a lot of his homework. And we were certain from week one that we were going to get married and that this was going to be our trajectory. And he came from a very different background in that he didn't have any proximity to the Catholic faith, but he was intrigued, as we have heard, by monasticism. And we had a class that he took on monasticism. He went to Belmont Abbey on a visit.
Sounds like he listened to your dad.
He's been back to Belmont Abbey, I don't know how many times by himself on private retreats all along all of these years. And we kind of, at that point, we're like, well, I guess we'll be Catholic when we retire because we're only trained in one thing. We have to feed these people we keep making, and we can't figure out how to do it. We can't figure out how to make the jump. So I was actually pregnant with our oldest, and Andrew was reading the Catechism.
Of the Catholic Church.
Yes, because we were theology students, so we did fun things. And he's reading the Catechism.
Great Friday night date.
Yeah, I know. And he's in the other room, and he calls to me. He's like, Lydia, we have a problem. And I was like, what's the problem, buddy? And he's like, well, that whole corner on the priesthood of the believer thing that we think we have as Baptists? It's in the Catholic Church. It's in the Catechism right here. And he's like, the priesthood, priest, prophet, king, it's all here. I was like, yeah, I know. It's not a problem.
Right.
But still, at that point, we are trying to make a life together and trying to figure everything out. And so we're still on this trajectory of, well, he's serving a church, I'm serving a church. I am quickly getting more and more responsibilities within the church. I'm now teaching and preaching. Like it's escalating. And
About what year is this?
So the first Lydia, we have a problem happened in 2008.
Okay.
Because David was born in 2009, like February of 2009. So it was in 2008 when he said that. And I didn't feel like we had a problem, but that's also because I'm like, sure, let's jump, let's do the thing. God will give us food. And so, but he's a little more practical than I am. And
almost like that husband-wife.
Yeah, I don't know. He has this kind of sense that he's supposed to take care of us. And so we just kept on trucking and kept on trucking and kept on having babies. And
like good Catholics.
Like good Catholics, because we believe in that. And so it was actually when we moved into the phase of being parents of a middle schooler that we got to the point where I know it's crazy to believe, but 2 Baptist pastors never prayed together as a couple. But we did at that point because we needed to pray together. We needed each other, and we needed the Holy Spirit to be the center of our relationship. And so we started this deep season of prayer. And all along the way, if ever I were preaching or I were teaching, same with Andrew, if ever we need to know truth, we would look at what the church fathers wrote. We would look at papal documents. We would look at the catechism to make sure that we weren't veering anybody astray. And so we do a great job of documenting all of the theology we have here in the Catholic Church, and we have a treasure trove to be able to look towards. And so
that's all very accessible.
But see, that's also how we were trained as Baptist pastors. Like in Baptist seminary, we were taught patristics. And so we were taught to look at these documents. We were taught to write this way in all of our exegetical papers that we were writing. And so we were trained to do this. And that's where we were looking. And then when it came to a matter of parenting a middle schooler in today's culture, the only place that had anything solid for us was the church. And so Andrew's printing off these documents from the Archdiocese of Baltimore. Or he's printing off this document from the Vatican's website, or he's printing off all these things, and he's leaving them out. We're reading and reading and reading. And Andrew is really unsettled. I was as well, but he was really unsettled with just the whole season we were in. And so he would walk over to the Newman Center at UNC and just sit in Mass so he had proximity to Jesus and just to be quiet. I don't even think he participated in Mass. Now, let me tell you, my favorite dates were when I was like, hey, let's go to the cathedral and go to Mass. And, we're Baptist students. And so at the old cathedral at Sacred Heart. The little cathedral. We would go up to Sacred Heart, and I'd be like, yeah, I know how to do all the things. You don't, but I do. And so now he's going on his own, and he started little by little, participating and getting more comfortable. And then he has this moment with the Eucharist where he realizes, one, it's just a total wash, like Edith Stein, this is true. But two, if this is true, then I am unfaithful if I go anywhere else but to Jesus. So he called me as he walked out of the Newman Center that day, and he said, Lydia, we have a problem. And I was like, we don't have a problem. I've been praying for this for 20 years. There is no problem. And from that moment, I started praying every day, just these little arrow prayers. God, make a way. God, make a way. God, make a way. And it took a month and a half. And I was giving a tour to someone of my Baptist church because we were going to host a conference. And we sat down in the fellowship hall, and he looked across the table and he goes, Lydia, are you happy? And I pulled my rosary out of my pocket in the Baptist fellowship hall and broke down. And I was like, I've been praying that God would make a way. And he offered me a job right there out of the blue. And so at the time, I'd been meeting with Monsignor Ingham at St. Luke's monthly because, I had to teach on Wednesday nights. I couldn't go to OCIA. And so I was meeting with Monsignor, and I said, Monsignor, it's still technically working for the Baptists. He said, we just have to get you not preaching. And so it took about a year for me to be able to, for that job, all the details to work out, because it didn't exist before that man offered it to me. They had to build the job. And when I had my last church service on December 31st, everybody took a break on New Year's Day, and then I went to work on January 2nd, my first day on the new job, and it happened to be a Tuesday, and at St. Luke's we have Mass at 5:30 on Tuesday nights, and Andrew and I came into the church that night.
With Monsignor.
With Monsignor. He walked us all the way in, and he nurtured us so well. And it was just, we all say welcome home, when people come into the church, and I was home. I was finally home.
Well, and I love that connection with Monsignor, especially for the Come to Me program, because he was such a Eucharistic priest.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness, yes. I mean, every homily, he's pointing to the tabernacle.
Yes.
He's wanting you to see that this is what this is all about. And he was just drawing us in. That was his life's mission, was to draw us to the Eucharist. And he did.
Well, and I'm sure you remember, because you're also a parishioner there, that his dying wish was to die like Archbishop Fulton Sheen,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
in front of the Eucharist.
Yep.
And in all of God's true justice, he granted that wish to Monsignor.
Yeah,
he was granted that beautiful gift of a happy death with Jesus in the Eucharist after having dedicated his entire priesthood. Mm-hmm. I know there are many listeners who are like me, who went to Our Lady of Lourdes and with him as our priest. He started the Adoration Chapel there. Yep. Perpetual adoration is a thing in the capital of North Carolina because of Monsignor Ingham.
Yeah, yeah.
So I am overjoyed that is sort of the peak of this part of your story, then launching you into this new life of faith in the church. Mm-hmm. And we are so glad that you're home.
Thank you.
Because you and your family and Andrew and all of your children are just such a gift to the whole church, in a particular way to St. Luke's. We do share that smaller family connection. And so we're just so grateful you're here.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you were willing to share your story on the program. I know it will inspire a lot of people. We live in the Bible Belt, and so I think most of us know and love and are in deep relationship with probably a lot of Baptists. And so you offer an example of how the beauty of the faith, the authenticness of living the faith, of participating in the sacraments in the church, and inviting our Protestant brothers and sisters, being open and welcoming to those students, to those families, to those employees, can really be those doors that they can walk through to come closer to Christ in the Eucharist.
You'd be amazed. You wouldn't, because you're one of these people. How many people get so excited when they hear that I used to be a Baptist pastor, and they're like, I know a Baptist, and I need you to talk to them. Can you write down their phone number and call them? I'm like, yeah, I actually probably already know that Baptist too. Sure. Well, I'll give them a call, and we'll have these conversations. And, and the conversations are gentle, and they're so wonderful to be able to have with people, because generally, by the time you've met an enthusiastic Catholic, and you're a Baptist, and honestly, you're also a committed Baptist. Like, you love Jesus, and you have met someone who loves Jesus, but it's turning everything you thought you know about Catholics on its head, then you're intrigued. And so they're already softened because they've seen something in the Catholics in their lives that's called them towards the Eucharist. And they're realizing, I love him. They get to the same point that that Andrew got to, that if I go anywhere else but to Jesus, I'm unfaithful. And so that heart conversion, it's interesting, has already happened. And then it's their heads, which we always think it's the other way around. It's a head conversion and then a heart conversion. Their hearts have generally already been converted. But they have to wrap their heads around transubstantiation. And it's kind of a new concept for a lot of
Lydia.
them. Unless they were educated at Sacred Heart Catholic School in Danville, Virginia, which, by the way, my confirmation sponsor was my kindergarten religion teacher. Oh my gosh, she drove all the way down here, afraid of ice and snow on January 2nd to be here at night. Because, she was my kindergarten religion teacher. So,
in your Catholic school.
She aged at the same rate that I did. Of course. And so, driving at night's not fun. But she came down and was a part of welcoming it into the church as well.
So beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. I love it. Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, so one of the reasons I was so excited to have you on the show today is because we also have an announcement that we're making about the future of Come to Me. And I have some different things going on in my life. I've taken a new position with a wonderful Catholic organization. But I'm a little bit behind the ages of your children. And so my children are also in very needy ages.
Absolutely.
And so the hardest phone call I had to make when I took my new job was to Missy to tell her that I was no longer able to meet the demands of hosting this show, which has been such an absolute joy. And in the midst of you and I running a vacation Bible school over the summer, I think the Holy Spirit just kind of put a little light bulb into Missy's brain saying, well, we've got the perfect transition. And so I'm very excited to announce that Lydia Tatum will be the new host of Come to Me. She's going to be a joyful and exuberant storyteller.
I do come in with jazz hands everywhere I go.
Yes, and lots of exclamation points.
Lots of
Which are
exclamation
all
points.
the things we should be when, in living this life of faith and telling the goodness, truth, and beauty that is Jesus Christ, that is the person of truth. And so I'm so grateful that you said yes to that ask. And so actually, I'm now going to turn the program over to you.
Absolutely. Well, Brittany, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so grateful for the way that God has worked in your life and for our paths crossing the way that they have at St. Luke's. You've been so much a part of our journey as well, but also for God placing this show on your heart. I know it's been about a year since you got it launched off the ground, but this was percolating in you for a while, I'm imagining. So tell us, what was the impetus for starting Come to Me? Where were you originally planning all of this to go? And over a year of this, with guests coming on, has it gone how you thought it would?
Yes. It really was like just my happy dream, like my happy place dream. If I could dream of anything that would make me happy, that like it was this show. And I'm just so grateful to Divine Mercy Radio for giving me the opportunity to make that dream come true. Because since I was in high school, but certainly since I was in college, I would text my friends all my favorite episodes of The Journey Home, or I'd, find a YouTube video of some conversion story. And I don't know if it's just because I grew up in the Bible Belt as a Catholic in mission territory. I think technically we're no longer mission territory, but that's we're just very barely not anymore. And so just, I love people. I'm sure everyone knows that I love people because I just will talk to anybody all the time. And I just love seeing and hearing how God is in their life, and I particularly love the beauty of getting to a certain point and being able to look back and see all the places where he was that you didn't realize it,
Yes.
And remember it was very trendy, when we were in middle school or high school, you'd have the Footsteps poem or the motivational posters. But there was that one particular poem about walking on the sand with the footsteps and, and it's me and Jesus. And then all of a sudden it's one and you think Jesus is left and he says, no, I was carrying you. And that is one of my favorite parts of the adventure of life is that as we continue on this journey, you look back and you see all these just beautiful touches. And that's my favorite thing that I get to hear from people.
Yeah.
But we alluded to it a little bit that Monsignor Ingham was a very, very powerful image of Christ in my life from childhood. Like your parents, my parents made tremendous sacrifice to send my siblings and I to Catholic school. I went to Our Lady of Lourdes. And the entire 9 years that I was at Lourdes, and most of the 17 years my parents spent with children at Lourdes, Monsignor Ingham was the priest there. And he started the Adoration Chapel, the Perpetual Adoration Chapel. It was the first one. I had never heard of such a thing. And honestly, I couldn't even tell you how old I was when he started the chapel. I have these memories of different things happening related to it, but everything about my faith when I was under the spiritual care of Monsignor Ingham in that capacity was so Eucharistic focused that I can't even tell you when the specific chapel building became part of it, because it was always about the Eucharist. And so then in, God's beautiful infinite wisdom, life has gone about, I've gotten married, my husband came into the church, we have children, and we end up at, back at, after several years away, St. Luke's with Monsignor Ingham. And now he is giving, First Holy Communion to my children. My daughter wore the same dress that I wore when he gave me First Communion, like just all these amazing God touches. And then he got ill.
Yeah.
And so I have always loved Divine Mercy Radio. And I'm not even exactly sure like how I first got connected. Like my mom is friends with the Flannerys. And so I kind of grew up around them. And at some point I must have just been like really loud and excited and exuberant. And so Cecilia had this crazy idea, like, well, we'll put Brittany on the radio and maybe she'll be so excited that when she asks people to give us money, they will. And so I always got invited to do the pledge drives. And it was just so fun. Like you're in a room with a bunch of people. We're ringing NC State cowbells, and even the UNC fans are ringing them with us because we're raising money, and Father Ty would, he had this great phrase about sanctifying the airways. And I just thought, this is great. Like this is a great cross point of the tradition of the church and the like new technology, but also old technology that is accessible to everybody, being able to just grow the faith, to plant these seeds, to water these seeds, to nurture the church. And I loved everything about it. And as time has gone on, Divine Mercy Radio has been so generous to invite me in to do different things. And so, Missy and I, our paths were crossing personally for different things. And we were just kind of brainstorming ideas. And when Monsignor Ingham got sick, I was really in a time of discernment and prayer about, okay, I'd like to do a show. They have space where they would like me to do a show. What is it going to be? And I was in adoration like the week that Monsignor died, and the show title just came to me. And it wasn't, and the whole inspiration was not just to tell conversion stories. Like this was not my like laundry mom, guilty pleasure, junk TV, like catch up. It was to be stories focused on the Eucharist and the intimacy of Christ in the Eucharist and how he is really there. And he wants us to be really there with him.
Yep.
And so that's what the Holy Spirit did it. And he's been doing it since I was 5 years old, because without that history with Monsignor Ingham, with my family history with the Flannerys, without raising my children in the place where I was raised, building these beautiful new friendships in the parishes that my husband and I have been in, none of this would have come to be. And that's what Come to Me is.
That's amazing. I don't know. I mean, Brittany, we're friends.
Yeah.
The first time that we really spoke, you accosted me in the parking lot at St. Luke's, telling me how much you loved conversion stories.
I did chase you down, actually.
You did chase me down. But it's just so fascinating to me how really this is all pointing to us sharing this ministry together, of pointing to the Eucharist still. And continuing to do it and pulling others in to tell that story, because we don't have a corner on this market. Monsignor didn't have a corner on this market, but he certainly always magnified the Lord and always led us to do the same. And so as we do this ministry together, because you're still being called on, texted.
I assumed.
Yeah, you're still being called on. As we do this ministry together, I mean, that is our goal, is just to magnify the Lord, to point people to Jesus, so that we all come to that point where we say, this is true. And if this is true, I can't go anywhere else. I've got to go to him. I've got to go to him. To the point where, hey, I want everybody going to daily Mass. Can we do that? Can we all go to daily Mass? Can we all be nurtured by the Eucharist every day? Go to confession first, guys, but go and be nurtured by the Eucharist every day. Go visit Jesus. You drive by. We are so blessed in Raleigh to have so many Catholic parishes around. We drive by so many. just pause for 2 seconds and say hello. He's right there. You're driving down Falls and Noose. You're driving past St. Raphael's. Make a sign of the cross. Say hello. He's there.
He is.
And teach your kids to do the same.
Yes.
Because we are nurturing these generations to continue to find hope and joy and peace and love and all of their life in Christ. And he's here for us. He's right here.
Yes.
And he makes himself available.
And I love that we are recording this during the season of Advent. And I just had this conversation with a group of children that I lead a ministry for about the connection of the incarnation and the Eucharist, because we were doing a lesson on the Eucharist, but we're doing it during Advent. And it strikes me how appropriate it is for this new beginning, this transition of Come to Me, to happen during this season of hope and preparation and peace and joy. But the season where what we're really preparing for, what Christmas really is the incarnation. And what the incarnation is God of the universe made flesh. And that did not happen one day in the year 0 AD. And that happens every single day in the Mass. The mystery of the incarnation is represented to us in its total tangible reality. And this to me is one of the things that through all these years of loving to hear people's stories, that the Eucharist really is the separating, differentiating factor. The reality of, yes, God is present in your heart. Yes, he lives within you. He is in your family. He is in the beauty of creation. He is in all those places. You can eat his flesh in the Eucharist. That is a different level of intimacy, and it is only in the Eucharist. Yeah. And that is the incarnation that we're all very excited to be celebrating during the Christmas season. But that is the reality of the joy that we're trying to draw people into. That level of human intimacy, touch, tangible intimacy that you have when you cuddle your kids or you kiss your spouse.
Yeah. You know, I love really funny God winks. And I know there are a million different ways that people say, Advent in the Latin means, but if we break it down, guys, it means come to or come toward, add toward to, come to. Yeah. So here we are. Advent Jesu. Here we are.
Yes. Well, Lydia, I am so grateful. This has been super fun today, but mostly life has been super fun since you came into the church, which then was able to bring you into all of our lives in a much more fun and exciting way. And as I said, I cannot think of anybody better to continue telling these stories and sharing them. So thank you. Thank you so much for your faithfulness, for your witness, and for your yes in this particular way.
Absolutely.
I also want to make sure I thank the amazing production team here at Divine Mercy Radio, especially for all of your extreme patience and hard work with me over the last year of running this show, and especially for your help with today's episode. I want all our listeners to know that they can listen to this episode again or previous episodes of Come to Me and tune in for all of Lydia's future episodes. In addition to all the other great local programming on the website, Catholic540.org/local shows. You can listen anytime on the free Divine Mercy Radio NC app or on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Come to Me. I am Brittany Makely with Lydia Tatum. And until next time, Jesus in the most blessed sacrament here on earth.